Здравствуйте, мы в прямом эфире Актер Talk Live. С вами я, София Ская. Каждую неделю по четвергам мы с вами встречаемся и встречаем наших именитых гостей. Сегодня нервничаю даже я, потому что в гостях у нас будет знаменитый артист, чьи работы, я восторгаюсь его работами, смотрела некоторые фильмы по много раз. Это Саид Тагмауи. Вот, и в списке его фильмов у меня тут просто листы распадаются, в каких только он не участвовал в картинах, но я вам прочитаю лист моих самых любимых. Джон Уик 3. Мы уже встречали Марка Дакаскаса, который участвовал в этом же фильме, я обязательно передам привет Саиду. Чудо-женщина. Вы не сможете не узнать Саида, если вы не смотрели этот фильм. Точка обстрела. Ограбление по-французски. Идальго, погоня в пустыне, бегущие за ветром, связь, остаться в живых, ответный удар, западное крыло, пропавшие без вести и другие. Саид Тагмауи – это легендарный американско-французский актер, который, я очень надеюсь, что сегодня сможет оставить нам очень много интересной информации из своего опыта, который мы в дальнейшем сможем использовать, и актеры, и просто люди, и те, кто к чему-то стремятся, имеют какие-то цели. Я надеюсь, что он сейчас в ближайшее время к нам присоединится. Повторяю, что, как всегда, эфир будет проходить на английском языке. Мы переведем его затем с субтитрами на русский язык, выложим в IGTV и в YouTube, и вы сможете услышать все, о чем мы беседовали, если кто-то не говорит по-английски. Так, я жду, что Саид к нам присоединится. Он сейчас находится в Париже, разница во времени у нас 1 час. Вот. И история этого человека на самом деле действительно уникальна. Начинал он с боевых искусств, об этом мы услышим, затем попал в кино. И совершенно потрясающим образом там проявился так, что в течение многих-многих лет не было ни года без какого-то грандиозного блокбастера, в котором бы не поучаствовал Саид. И в каждой из своих ролей он действительно разный. И у меня есть вопросы, где я хотела бы уточнить, какие же все-таки свои личностные качества Саид использует при работе со своими героями и как он их находит. Я знаю, что у нас был в гостях актер, который рассказывал о том, что он находит свою роль через наблюдение. Он просто смотрит за людьми, бывает, ходит в кафе, одевает что-то на себя там, где его невозможно узнать, и наблюдает за каким-то персонажем, который покажется ему интересным, и таким образом буквально слизывает с него характер. Мне интересен подход всех, вот все, с кем я общаюсь, к чему программа Актер Talk. Мы создаем некую платформу, откуда я смогу поделиться с вами через свою школу, Real Art Studio, поделиться с вами и опытом, и намеками, и какими-то новшествами, и идеями, которые каждый актер, знаменитый или успешный человек из нашей профессии для себя нашел. Потому что на самом деле нет такого, что есть какая-то одна определенная система. Есть, безусловно, техника и тактика, да, которая ведет нас, есть скелет, по которому стоит работать как актеру, но тем не менее есть и опыт, и человеческий фактор, и очень много всего того, что по пути во время нашей работы нам помогает. И очень бы хотелось собрать побольше такой информации. И для себя я продолжаю учиться, и для моих зрителей и студентов. Итак, через 1 секунду. Yes, I'm gonna see Said in... Yay! Hi, Said!
Hey!
How are you doing?
I'm good.
To see you.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, Said, thank you so much for joining this thing. I know that you're not so much into this stuff, and I appreciate that, and I just to explain to you what we're doing is actors and filmmakers, we're sharing what we know and our feelings, and sometimes we go to the back, to the memory of how it began, because there's so many people who are dreamers, like me 9 years ago. I knew that I'm so talented and I'm beautiful, and Los Angeles was made for me, so why don't I go there and be a star? So I packed my luggage, I went to Los Angeles, 9 years there. No, I had parts. I was pretty successful on my own, but it's not like stars are coming down from the sky. So what we're doing here is we're discussing the way, and you are a star of this life. And I know that one day you were a kid as well, who didn't know what to do, who didn't know the future, and you decided to be a boxer, French character, you know, and then somehow you became an actor and very successful. So can you please share with me, first of all, with the audience as well, like how can it be? With Brett Ratner, who introduced us, we discussed the choices and how important it is that one moment when you make a right choice. And so what do you think about that, and how did your way became the way it is right now? And are you happy with that? And this is my first question too. Then we're going to talk about quarantine and blah, blah, blah.
Okay, my friend Sophia. It's good to talk to you. How we say your name? Sophia, yeah?
Yes, it's Sonia for you.
Yeah, Sonia. That's a good name. I like that.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm fine. In Russia, it's not like it is in Paris or US right now. It's just quarantine, which I, as a mother, enjoy. I enjoy to be home and feel like it's legal. It's legal to be home and do basically wife, son job. But yes, I know that for men, it's a tough time because everything stopped. Money stopped, and the way you feed your family and kids is very different and difficult. So from my point of view, it's a question to you. How are you? I'm safe.
I'm good,
I'm
thank
a woman.
you. I'm very good. I'm very good. Actually, I was doing a nap. I was so tired because I had to wake up so early this morning. And I'm not used to wake up early, you know, with the corona and the quarantine. I became very, not lazy, but, you know, the schedule completely changed.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get back to a good rhythm of life. It's not easy, but it's okay. So, yeah, let's talk about acting and the dreams and
Can you
how
remember how did it start for you? Like you were just a kid and you wanted to be better than other boys, probably. So
I
that's
mean,
why
you know, when you're a
boxing.
kid, you have dreams, and then you have to wake up to make those dreams becomes, you know, if you keep sleeping, it's just gonna be a dream. So it's good to be a dreamer. It's better to be a man. I mean, awake, an awake person. But yeah, and it takes time from the dream that we have in life, and until we wake up, and until of having this dream make it a reality. It takes a long time because you know, it's everybody has a different journey. Some people, you know, it's destiny. You know, sometimes life is not an exact science, so you don't want to go crazy with yourself and say why this person is doing better or whatever. You just understand that you have your own journey, and if you believe in God like I do, you try to make all these obstacles, all these problems become something that God wants for you to become better and stronger. And you know, and I believe that every time God put like an obstacle, or give you some life, give you some type of problems, it's because God knows that you have the capacity to resolve that problems and make you bigger and stronger. And so yeah, it's not an exact science. But when it comes to me, I started by chance. Actually, I was a little kid in Paris, in the suburb. I come from a very, let's say, a poor family. You know, from immigrant from Morocco. You have to understand the situation with France and all the colonization from back in the days. So Morocco was under French. That's why we end up, I mean, you know, being born and raised in France. And at that time, there wasn't that many actors who looked like me. You know, it was kind of difficult because, you know, as you can see, and it's never easy. It was maybe one or two in the world, like Omar Sharif at the time, you know,
Yes,
who
it's
was made
very
it like a,
exotic. You
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
say
yeah,
where you're from, really.
yeah, and made it internationally. But I really understood very early that it wasn't for the face or the colors, or it was more about the soul and what you had to do with the world and meeting the right people and try to, you know, become what you want to become and go over the racials and the colors and all that. And, you know, like I always said, there is good people everywhere in every community, and there is bad people in every community too. So I decide to seek through the soul of people and see who they are for real.
So did you, does it mean that from the very beginning, since you were a child, you felt somehow like a guest all the time?
Oh, not even a guest, like not even inviting to the party, not even on the list.
That's
You know what I mean? At least if I was a guest, that would be interesting. I wasn't even thinking about organizing that party, just being part of it. So yeah, no, it's not easy for many reasons. Socially, first of all.
Yeah.
I was coming from a poor family, and you know, when you're coming from poor areas, it's never easy.
And you have three
you know,
brothers
yeah.
Four
So that was
sisters.
the first thing, without discrimination first, like just socially being poor. It's the first step, you know, it's like the first barrier or something like that. So
And you have,
and then when you go away, when you're able to work your way out of that social condition where you're coming from and do better for yourself and for your family, then you're gonna have to face the life reality. You know what I mean? Like we're living in very special society. You know what I mean? And it's very sneaky and very twisted. So for that reason, you just grow up slowly. You understand that it's a long run. It's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, actually. And you're gonna go for the long run, and you're just gonna try to get more culture, more knowledge, because that's the real key of everything at the end of the day. Because I do believe that the drama of this world is not misery, it's ignorance.
mm-hmm.
So from that, when you understand that, you started to put yourself in a situation that knowledge will be the best weapon, basically. Knowledge is an amazing weapon. So from that, at least you can give a name to your pain. You know, you can define your pain and you can know what we're talking about. You're no more a victim no more. You know what's going on to yourself and you can deal with that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Said, I understand exactly. You have a big family. So you have 3 brothers and 4 sisters, or opposite. Did you felt like you're responsible for them, and that actually motivated you to go forward without listening the advices around and just go your way? What really motivated you? When did you felt for the first time that you're lonely and you're responsible for your own life and for probably your family? Because it seems like, you know, I look at you and I find kind of a brother in you, because similar understanding of responsibility and on your own, like I can, and if I can, I will do it. So but I can remember exact moment when I decided that nobody else will control me. I will do this and that, and I planned it. Did you have that experience because of your big family, your sisters and brothers?
No. I'm gonna be really honest with you. A big family helps in way of knowing what is brotherhood, you know, and helping your kid and you're growing up in the same thing. So that's a good thing for the feeling of not being alone. But we so different. I love my sisters, I love my brothers, but they're very different than me. And sometimes I felt that people that they wasn't from my family, like not the same blood and not the same flesh, but were more closer than me. Because at the end of the day, it's yourself. It's you against you. You know, it's like when you watch a mirror, it's what you see in the front of the mirror. You're gonna have to deal with that. And everybody's unique. So you're gonna find some friend souls on your journey. They come from different backgrounds. And you're gonna find yourself in them. So
do you remember do you remember being a kid, and do you remember when you actually exposed yourself, your passion that was inside of you from being born, you know, that God blessed you with the talent?
No,
Ah,
ever.
duh.
The
Do you
top,
remember anything like an action that where you for the first time would just do something really strong that would show that you're something else than others?
no, no. You feel different because it's something, it's like you and your demons, basically. It's like that little voice inside you. But then you discover with time, it doesn't come in one night. It doesn't come, oh, I wake up and I'm going to be an actor. First of all, I was very agitated.
Mhm.
Then I had to express myself. So I started with painting. My first thing was writing my names on the walls and just
Really?
going and do all this graffiti when I was a kid, all over the world, everywhere I go.
On
And I
the
didn't know.
walls on the street?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you were a hooligan.
Not a hooligan, a graffiti artist.
Okay.
But I didn't know that it was something that I needed to express to myself. And then from there, I left and I went to boxing. And I fell in love with boxing. And all that discipline that boxing gave, and the truth, the honesty. When you decide to become a boxer,
And the
obviously you
concentration.
can't lie. so
Right.
so you have to face
You
yourself.
cannot think, you need to react.
Yeah, you got to react and face yourself, and it's one against one, and it's basically you against you. So slowly you get to yourself like that, and then I find the key. Not the medicine, but the key, which is books and literature. Now this is where you find people who
Mwah.
felt the same, or that's why you feel. That's why you think that you're part of a big family, extended family, that people that you don't know, but what they wrote touch you so much, talks to you so much that you
Their
belong
experience.
automatically affiliated to these people. And
And
in
you can
Russia, you have
imagine
some
that
great,
you were them and
yeah,
get their
yeah.
experience on yourself. Hmm.
Tolstoy is one of them.
You love Tolstoy?
Oh my God. Andrei Tarkovsky is one of them.
Yes.
You know
Oh
what I
my
mean?
God.
So and they come from different countries, different culture, but they still have this human thing.
So I have one of the...
Because like we said, we all different, but we a lot the same
A lot the same, as I say,
at the
like,
end of the day.
yeah, we can imagine 5 different women having the different religions and different cultures, but if a kid of each of those women will get hit by a car, all of them will feel the same. So there is a universal truth, even though we're all unique. So that's
Yeah,
absolutely truth.
yeah.
Said, tell me,
That's why also, sorry to cut you, but that's why also art in general, it's so interesting, because it speaks to the soul, whatever it be, painting or sculpture or books or movies or whatever form it is. At the end of the day, it's something that's try to speak to the soul.
yes, and when you're on your own, it's something that actually stays there, something you've done and you
It's
stay there with
universal.
your
That's what
own.
I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It's completely universal.
So
And, and
if you
anything
would...
anything that is not that universal, actually, at the end of the day, I'm not really interested to that.
Mhm.
Honestly, I'm only interested of things that touch the human beings, the selfishness, the me, myself, and the I can do better. I'm not really interested of how much people made. I'm interested about what people share.
Huh. So you're more of an action person than the result one. So if you describe yourself in a few words, how would you describe yourself? Like, I'm calm, I'm
A
passionate,
citizen,
I'm...
no, just a citizen of the world, a human being who has a time to do on this earth, and try to do the best that we can, with the
To
heritage
share.
that we had from
Yes.
humanity. We have such a big heritage of humanity. We know what is good. We know what we're capable of, the best and also the worst. So, that's why we put red lights in every corner. We need some bloody rules. And it's the way that you jungle with those rules, and you're able to do your life and do whatever you want to do in life, respecting the rules. That's interesting.
Said,
That's discipline.
in what parts of the movies when you watch them you can cry? When you feel vulnerable? What's really attached to you? Is there like usual moments in the movies? Like in all the movies, when I see a moment looking like that, I always feel very sensitive. Do you have those?
When I see honesty, when I see pure honesty, I'm amazed. Because honesty, it's beauty. It's pure beauty. All the rest, it's interesting, but I'm not that impressed about.
How do you find your honesty in your performances? Do you get it from yourself or from the observation, or you imagining? What do you use?
You get your honesty by not being honest.
Explain.
By doing mistakes. I believe philosophy and wisdom, you know, it's the only I think medicine to that. Yeah, only thing that can heal your soul, because you can lie to a lot of people every morning, every day, but it's gonna be tough to lie to yourself all your life. So you're gonna have to face it. Sometimes it comes early in your age, 27 through some. I know some people who do sports in a very high level, so they confront themselves a lot, and through that confrontation, they're able to find themselves around 25, 27. Some people, you know, they find themselves 45 and really late. Some people find themselves. I know billionaires people, and at the end of their life, they didn't care about the money. It was about what they left behind them. What you're gonna leave, what you're gonna leave behind. That's the only thing who's gonna stay. Not how much your money you made. No, you know what I mean. The only thing who's gonna stay, it's if people says, "Oh, that was a good guy. He was a good man. Or she was a beautiful woman. That was a good woman." All the rest will go away. You know what I mean? Will go away in the history.
Do you, for yourself, do you know what would be the thing that if you achieve, you'll be okay with that, like for your life? Did you make a choice already, or you're still?
Yeah.
So what is it?
Definitely, most definitely. The ultimate goal.
Yes.
It's wisdom. It's wisdom. It's wisdom. It's being my dream, my personal dream, and I speak for myself. It's being in a garden, a big garden with my house, somewhere in some country, in some countryside, in some country, with my kids, a family, a lot of animals, and cultivate my things every day, my honey, my olive oil, my stuff, and I finish my life like that, and raising my kid. That and be the most happiest person on earth, cutting from all that bullshit nowadays, and just being able to protect that zone for my own family and for my kids, and try to raise them the way that I would have dreamed to be raised, which is understand who they are and try to help them to become who they are, not what I want them to be.
I have a question.
That's my ultimate dream. If you give me this, I don't want to do no more movies. I don't want to do nothing else. Just give me the key of that, and I'm signing. I even give you my career.
So, Said, let me tell you something, and that's the question, not from Sofia Sky, who is your basically colleague and actress, like from woman to a man. Why don't you guys just do it then? If
I'm
that's
working
the
on
dream.
it. We're working on it.
No,
we're working.
No. You're working till you're 70, and then nothing is working, and no woman wants to go to that island where you have your house and your kids, you know.
Yes, it takes time. Yo, coming from nowhere, it takes time. Yo, Moscow wasn't made in one night. It takes a little minute to do that right, because you want to do the best olive oil, you want to do the best honey, you want to do the best kids,
which means you need to try everything around before you actually know that this is the best.
Voilà, madame. Et voilà.
Aye, aye. So, which means you don't have kids. So that's not
No,
yet.
I have no kids and no wife yet. Huh?
No
So
kids and no wife.
yeah.
So I mean, that's the dream of yours in the end, to have your island with the wife and a kid. So yeah, I don't understand. Man is something else. As you
No, no,
guys.
Sonia, you don't get it. Human beings are something else.
All right. So tell me, Said, is the acting career, is this the main thing you're doing for a living, and there is something else that really excites you and supports you as well?
Wow,
And
that's a
there
good
was, and
question.
by the way, to our audience, guys, just so you know, Said didn't have a year without a big blockbuster, and there was no break since 1999, I think.
Something like that. But honestly, it wasn't about the numbers and also, you know, the size of the roles, because a lot of people think that you have to be the lead in a movie to, you know, no, me, I consider myself like a everyday, like a guy who go work in a factory. I'm a professional. I don't care about the size of my role until I have something to defend. I don't care about the budget of the movie if the script is great. I love what I do. So sometimes there is big money, sometimes the money is the quality of what we're doing, and we're going to meet a lot of great people. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's a long run for me. And yeah, I'm just like I'm not a superstar. I'm not a star. I'm just a decent actor who's lucky enough to be chosen by a lot of directors because I can deliver my job and I'm a professional. I come on
And
time. I'm
a
polite. I know my
brilliant
lines.
actor.
You know what I mean? The professional. I learned my job. It took me 27 years to become a professional. 27 years. And of course, I was lucky enough to learn that on set, which is the best school. The best school in this business is to go on set.
So that was
Whatever
another
set,
question.
whatever role, you're going to learn something.
Did you study anywhere acting before you actually started to work on set? That wasn't my schedule, the question. Did
Go
you
ahead, go ahead.
study?
Yes,
Or
of course. I started by chance. I did this unbelievable movie called La Haine about what's happening right now in the world, you know, all about this police brutality and all these things. So it became a very classical movie. So my life took like a big turn, and I was throwing in that world, and I didn't have the experience, no nothing. So I was kind of lost at that time. And I didn't even know if I really wanted to be an actor because I was doing boxing very seriously. So I had to make a choice. And obviously, you can fight way more with movies, with art, than boxing at the end of the day. So I decided to do it. And then I fell in love with the job. And I realized that, oh my God, this is a very complicated love. Because he's not like a writer who just need a pen and can write in your home and you can wake up in the middle of night and whatever your own boss. He's not like a painter who just
yeah.
needs some colors, and you need a lot of people to do movies.
And every single person has a meaning on its own. Every
And
single person is
every person has a way of where they see you. So they, you know, and all these they have to think the same thing together at the same time. It's not an exact science.
So how
So
old were you when you first came on set and tried yourself as an actor? I know that was a friend of yours who took you first
yeah,
on set.
yeah.
Yeah, so how old were you? And tell me about that experience and the choice. As we
I
said,
was, I was, I was, I think, 18, 18 years old when I ended up being on set for the first time. It was a music video, but like at that time, music video
Mhm.
was big, was very professional, was with very big cameras and big budget. So yeah, and then I fell in love with the vibes, and I asked, I still fight at the time, and I asked the guy if I can come back, and you know, just to being around, because you know, I was able to meet some very big music stars at the time. So I was like a kid, said, "Oh wow, that's the world. Okay, wow, how they do this
Mhm.
like that." And the producer says, "Yeah, you seems to be very interested. Why you don't work with us sometimes?" And he said, "What you want me to do?" He said, "You can do the sandwiches."
The what?
The sandwiches for the stars, like, you know, helping them with the coffee and all that. And I said, my ego, me, the sandwiches? I want to be a world boxing champion. And I think about it for one night, and I said, you know what? This very interesting world, and all my friends is not gonna see me doing all these sandwiches, and I can learn a lot because I was like, I don't want them to see me. So I said, hello, yes, I'm gonna come and do them sometimes. So I get there, and I took care of all the food and the sandwiches and the craft service. We call it the craft service in the US. And I was
Most important people on set.
very happy that I said yes, because it was one of the best yes I ever said. And then I became part of that production music video people. They were doing like maybe 60% of all the music video in France at the time. So I ended up being on set every weekend. Every weekend was a new adventure with the technician. And
Doing
I was like,
sandwiches?
Yeah, doing sandwiches and eat them too. I was eating too. And I was also carrying the rope, all the cliche, carrying the rope to the stars and bring them the coffee and how many sugar do you want, sir? Because they were stars. And I was just happy to be around and be friend with all the technicians and all the people from the lights and the costumes.
The
And that was my
atmosphere,
first
right?
introduction. That was my first. And then one day, I was doing my boxing things and stuff. And this director was looking for somebody like me for his music video. And the producer named George, special touch to George Anuna and Nicole, she said, Said is great. Maybe we can put him in that music video. I said, hell yeah, we're going to put him in
with the belly.
And my first time on screen was a music video for a group very famous at the time called Po-Wo. And the song was Le lion est mort ce soir. Very famous song. Dans la jungle, terrible jungle, le lion est mort ce soir. Famous song. Amazing song. I think it was a song from Ari Belafonte. And they made a remake. They make a remix of it with the voice a cappella. Beautiful. And I made the music video, and you can go. And it was in 1990, I think, 94 or something like that. 94. How many years is that? We in 2020.
20 years ago.
More than 20 years. Hell, 25 or something.
And
maybe 93. I think it's 93, 94, something like that. Yeah, true story.
And so yes. He got you there, and did you kiss some asses? Kick some asses?
No, because I was good friend with the producer. The only thing that I wanted at the time is doing pictures with the stars, because every weekend we see a new a singer, famous singer that I was watching on TV. I wasn't listening to them, but they were, the French variety, so they were very famous. That's the way I met Johnny Hallyday, Ophélie Winter, all these people. Pierre Bachelet. He was doing all the music video at the time.
When did you stop doing those sandwiches and was invited to be a part of a team? When was that?
When this guy, like I said, when this director came and he said, we need a guy like Said, maybe Said can do it. And they cast me, and I did my first basically my first time on film ever.
That's right. So you see, Said, the difference between you and most of the actors is that you were making sandwiches, somebody saw you, and then since then every year you're making like a blockbuster.
Oh my God!
and
that,
you're
right.
so talented and different, but like it's
You're
please.
Right. You're right. In the way that after that, they saw also, and then he has another friend who was to do music videos named Olivier Daon at the time. And I started doing music videos for him, and then we did a short movie. And then from that short movie, I was very comfortable. We did a proper movie for the French TV. And from that, it's history. I never stopped.
Yes.
And I went from France to the US because I wanted to work with some very specific people too. And I knew that the international thing, because I didn't went to school, so I couldn't speak a word of English, no nothing. And guess what? I never, ever took any English class in my life. Yes. I learned English with movies and music.
I mean, do you understand that it's very
Et
unique?
voilà.
Do you understand why I'm like so thrilled to ask you? For you, it's so simple. Oh, my life, I just went there. I was in that project, but I mean, it's like it's the actual big amount of, I shouldn't say luck, because you are really talented. And what they saw, like one thing you did, they saw you memorable, talented. They use you afterwards, but still, like there was never one bad project in your career.
No,
What's the secret?
Alors, first of all, Sonia, I'm gonna have to tell you that even if you're the most talented, it's not an exact science. And I am not the most talented. I worked
Yes.
my job, my passion, and I still work every day. I train. I watch movies. I learn lines. I question myself. I travel the world. I read books. I'm curious every day. You know, that's what is the main, the real job. It's all about that. But it's not on luck. You're right. Luck has a big thing to do. A big thing to do, being at the right place at the right time. But it's not only luck. But of course, because you have to provoke that luck. But you're right, luck has a big thing, and that's, I put it on God's name, and I believe that's what He wants, because I believe that God gives and God takes. So it's something there. That's my only rational explanation of that.
So tell me, in terms of working at home, improving your technique, your acting, what exercises do you do, and what coach you would go after? For example, me, I opened up this studio in Moscow because for 9 years I lived in Los Angeles, and Meisner technique really helped me to understand what acting is. It's all about the imagination, and it's very safe for you, so you're not going to your past experience, you're not really going over that, and you're not getting ill out of memory, but you're like a daydream, you're imagining. And I really liked that technique, and I came back to Moscow and I opened up that studio, and I really want to bring that technique to Moscow, because all that came at the very beginning from Stanislavski anyhow. But like, do you particularly work any exercises that helps you to improve? Or it's just the observation of the movies and trying yourself in monologues and just your own little like secretive stuff? Can you share it with me, because I want to improve myself all the time?
I think you're right. Also, Stanislavski, Stella Adler, all these techniques was, I think, one of the biggest step to acting understanding and to get into it. And of course, I read all these books and I studied them all, and it can be very helpful, but it can be also very tricky, and you can get stuck in there because everybody's unique. So you can read a technique, but you gotta be able to apply it to yourself. So it can be very dangerous because you need, because when you work with your own emotion, because at the end of the day, like I said, we're gonna go back to the main tool, which is honesty. But then how you can get that honesty out of yourself, out of you, your soul, and put it there for the world to see it and to share it. That's the real complex thing, I do believe. But yes, you need to get into those books, and you need to learn a lot of techniques and different way of doing it until you find your own way. So me, it's not one technique. I picked up in many different techniques who fits me. Because we all different, and I want to use 100% of myself, not 70%, because that technique doesn't fit me. So I use what I think it's good, and that I can use and use the full potential of myself. So I picked up here and there and there, but the first, the main thing who helped me out, actually my main and my first teacher was boxing. Weirdly, strangely, boxing was, because in acting and in everything you do, the body language is one of the most main thing. And
a ballerina speaking.
I
know exactly really what you're saying.
And I understood really late that it's called movies. It's it's movie, it's pictures moving. It's pictures, moving pictures, not dialogue. So less dialogue you can put, and better you can express what you have to say without a word.
Yes, the behavior.
That's the essence of you know what I mean? Like it's almost
meaning.
crystalline. It's almost like cut like a diamond. You know, like so. It's very, you have to be very sharp. So that's why people wrote so many dialogues, because they have to explain all the time. When normally in the cinema it's the image and the camera movement and the camera movement, and all that together, the direction of the camera and the way that thing moves will supposed to speak. That's the real dialogue, and then you can add some dialogue, but less dialogue you are, and better it is. You know,
but it's also depend, Said. It's also depending on your partner, because you can go so deep with your preparation, find yourself in the level of the seriousity of the situation in the scene, and then you're walking in and you see your partner going like just like different mood, and you need to find in the partner together to actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's
about the rehearsing on your own.
I know what you mean.
Do that. You have to react.
It's like playing tennis. You started playing a good tennis game when your opponent can play good. You have to be two to dance. You have to be two to meet. You know, you have to be two to play to something. So it's when you control your own style, then you can play with somebody who can control his own style, and then magic can happen. So
have you ever had disagreements on set, like a full disagreements, like the antagonistic stuff?
Many times.
Can you tell me one story, please? And that would be a nice thing to share.
I mean, it happens times when but also you can use it when sometimes wrong it's happening with somebody and you have some type of tension. You know, before anything, you're a professional. You came to deliver your part, whatever you like the person or you don't like it, and you have to keep it professional and don't make it personal. That's the first thing you do, because we are very lucky to do it. And you know, you cannot be in love with everybody. Yeah, but I mean, it's human. It's human. Some people that you're gonna get along with, and some people you're not gonna get along. But at the end of the day, you didn't came on set to get along with people. You came on set to share the talent and to do a movie together and to print something on life on film, and you're professional. So, and if you become friend, it's a plus. It's a plus. But you're not there to become friend with nobody. You're there to defend your character. Like a painter who's going to use a red color and a black color to create the contrast. That's what we want from you. That's why we cast you, for this color. So your personal thing, you put them on the side. And then, look, I did a movie, Wonder Woman.
Yes.
We went in London.
Excellent job. Thank you for that part. Excellent.
You liked it?
Yes. Yes, such a care. And you knew how to make it not to be too bright and not to, I mean, thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Habibi. So, we were 5 months in London in winter, and the movie, half of the movie is in the war, Second World War. It means cold and mud and real heavy costumes, like for 5 months. Physically, it's very intense. It's great the first 2 weeks. But then after that, it's like, it's still a dream. You're very happy to go and all that, but you need to go really deep inside and remember why you love what you do.
I love my job. I love my job.
But this condition helped us to become really close to each other. Chris Pine was unbelievable. I mean, it was become one of my best friends because we hang out and we had to spend so much time together in so many crazy situations that you become automatically deep because you leave some amazing moments with them, and that will stay here and here for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot, an amazing girl. She's one of my good friends now because we become really good friends, not movie friends.
But real ones.
Yeah, we have where to share than just movies and fame and all that, you know. No, we have real things because, you know, from culture, from food, from friendship, from we had so much fun, you know. Eugene is the same, that guy who played the Indian. Eugene Brave Rock is the same. We create that and that happens a lot. We have so much fun, and that's the best memory for us. And sometimes you do a great movie and the vibes is not that great with everybody, you know. Everybody's different, tension, jealousy, whatever you call it. So you just remind yourself that you're there to do your job. And okay, these people are different. Maybe they're doing something wrong in their life. Maybe, you know, you don't want to judge them. You just said, okay, you're not in the right mood. Let's just do the job and let's do the scenes. That's the way I do it.
You are saying a very right professional stuff, and you're a boxer. I'm a ballerina, and I think the same. I always thought of myself as a material that should be used a professional, strict way on the stage as a ballerina, and we know how to work without asking ourselves, do we want it or not? But most people, they're actually, I want it, I don't want it. And the first, what we started this conversation from was the conflicts on set. And I had this question written down because I know that, you know, a boxer, a ballerina, we're all on our own. It's not a teamwork. It's actually a solo job where you take care of yourself and you know that anybody around is not your friends, they're enemies. You can play as friends, but actually you should fight them and you should be better than them. And my question, I had a situation on set on my very first movie with the famous actors on set. I'm not going to say the names, but I will explain it to, yes. So there was situations when I wasn't that experienced to draw the barriers, you know, like, guys, you cannot step here. Let's do this professionally, as you say. So there is sometimes even very professional people can go and start making, some unprofessional things, like, you know, go to directors, say they're not in the mood or they don't like the smell of that actor, or go like, clean my eyeliner or whatever. And you said that you had those situations. Everything you explained afterwards, it's the correct, right way. But
I have one to tell you.
Yes, please tell me, how did you resolve?
I had a crazy
the
situation
problem?
one day. I had a crazy situation one day.
You got me.
That's a funny one though. So I was an up-and-coming actor, but at the time I was very in love with my job, almost like a Shakespeare. You know, I was in the theater and reading all these big plays from Phèdre, from all that Greek tragedy and all that. So I was like that, you know, up-and-coming thing and a dreamer. You know, when you're a young actor, you're kind of a dreamer. You're like a rebel. You know, you want to make a revolution of the world and the thing. And I got cast on an amazing movie with amazing cast. Was all the big star of France. Was Johnny Hallyday, God bless him, rest in peace. Renaud, the big singer, and Gérard Depardieu, and myself. And I was playing one of the leads. And I had this thing of Gérard Depardieu, the best actor in the world. Wow, I'm going to work with Gérard Depardieu. This is amazing. Wow. And I was watching his movies and I said, yeah, man, this guy can act. Wow, and stuff. And you know, somebody told me one day, never meet your idols.
Never what?
Never meet your idols. People that you like a lot. Never meet them. Keep them in your mind.
Yes, because you're going to be so disappointed.
So I'm there in Canada. I'm there in Canada doing this movie with them. And Gérard arrived. And he was not Gérard that I saw in the movie that I liked back in the day. He was Gérard Depardieu, but a different version of that. And for some reason, for me, he was the best actor in the world. So when you're an actor, and I was put me in the context, the lines, it's everything. Your lines, it's everything. This is where you make the magic. This is what you never know your line enough. Line is the key of everything. Line, you have to sweat your line. You have to drink your line. You have to your line. I goes, okay. So I know my line so well. And I know the line of everybody. I learned the line of everybody to make sure that I'm on point. I'm a competitor. Like you said before, we are competitors. So I arrive on set and I have my first scene with Gerard. I was like, wow, today it's a green day. God, you love me. I love you too, God. Thank you to give me this opportunity to print on Life on Film with Mr. Gerard Depardieu. I arrive on set. I slept well. I'm so happy. This is a big moment of my life. This is a green day. So I get there and I see Gerard arrive like this, talking and stuff. And me, I said, okay, so we're going to do the scene. So we're doing the scene. And I see Gerard with some papers and things like that. And I said, maybe we do a rehearsal for the camera, for everybody. I said, I went to him, I said, do you want to do maybe a rehearsal? He goes like, yeah, let's do a rehearsal. I said, okay. So we're doing a rehearsal and I see he has his paper and with like 5 lines. 5 lines. And here's the paper in the front of me. It goes like, and we had to do the movie in French and in English. So one take in French, one take, okay, it's okay, no problem. We can even do in Arabic if you want. We can do 5 versions, no problem. So that was on the contract. We had to do both, like French and English. So another line. And I goes like, okay, I started to watch him and it's myself, wow, this guy is such a pro. He knows his line, but he's still carrying it like a paper and stuff. That's deep. I goes like, that's deep. And we're about to do the scene. So we rehearsal. So he has this thing. The rehearsal went great. So now we're about to do the scene. So they goes like, okay, everybody's ready. Ready, last touch. So they come for the makeup. Ready, rolling. I said, okay. And now I see Gerard Depardieu coming to me and put the paper and want to put the paper with the line on my neck.
Oh my God. Said, that's like, I mean, this is, oh my God, Said.
True story.
I need to, this is, unbelievable. In 30 seconds,
I'm like in shock. All that acting dream, all that thing fell off in 1 second.
My dear.
I thought it was a joke for a minute. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like, those hiding camera. Like,
I need to go back to you in 1 second because this Instagram makes the eliminated time and they say in 1 minute we're going to be shut down. I need to continue that story.
Oh my God, this guy, the biggest actor in the world, want to put that thing in my face. I go like,
So if we...
Things happen, honestly, but I didn't know. I wasn't prepared at the time to deal with that. You know what I mean? I wasn't prepared to deal with that. That's the problem. All right, so what you want to do? You want to give up and come back? I wasn't prepared.
I so needed. I mean, your story is so incredible. And my guy's going behind. Hold on. 2 minutes left.
You need to listen to the second part because that's the first part.
So let me recall you back right now. So I'm going to turn off my live and turn it on again. And we're going to continue. Please, please do it for me. Because I know that any seconds they can just like turn us off. Let me tell the audience, guys, I'm going to turn off the live. This live will be saved. And I'm going to call back. Turn on the live again. And we're going to continue.
Let's see if people want to see. Let's see. It's like a commercial. Let's see if people want to hear the other part of the story.
Guys, do you want to hear the other part? Do you care about them, Said? I want to hear the second part of the story. I do.
All right. So let's see.
So let's turn it off and turn it on again. Thank you guys again, and in a sec. Everyone is very excited about the story. I was a little bit nervous in the end that we're going to be turned off in the middle. So you were shocked, and I would be too. I mean, like you expect one thing and then.
Hold on. Yes, I was shocked because, you know, in the concept of all that, and I was a young, you know, and I didn't know that things like that and whatever, it was just an experience. And it doesn't take anything away from his talent. I mean, you know, he did
They say they want
unbelievable stuff.
Second
the best
part.
actor for a long time. He did some brilliant performances, and you know, and it's not easy. Like I told you, to be a big star and to live the life of, you know, to deal with fame is not easy. But yes, I guess he was in a moment of his life that something was.
But the thing,
you know,
I mean, Said, you were saying from your kid and your actor beginning, you were just in the beginning of your acting. Your story was told from the kid's point of view, and that's the beauty of it. It's not from like our professional vision. We understand everything, but for you, for a kid who just got into the project,
so that's why I told
the
him.
fun of it. Yes.
And me, I tried to tell him. I was like, what you doing? What's going on? And also 5 lines. I was like, and also, you know, they take big checks and stuff. I said, that's the main job you have to do, is to learn that. I mean, you know, because acting, you've been doing that for a long time. So I was confused. And me, I was like, no, not me. I got too much respect for acting and stuff. You can put that paper wherever you want, but not on my face. I said, I don't want the god of acting. They're going to blame me. They're going to say, what the hell? That's a bad karma. That's a bad karma. I don't want that. I said, I understand. No problem. No problem. I still was wondering why he couldn't learn. I mean, like, anyway, so I didn't want to get into that. And
listen, I
said, you can put it, whatever. And then he ended up putting on the wall behind me, and you know, on the line, and like
listen.
this. He was watching this, but he told me that he did a lot of movies like that. That he has a technique. He has a special technique. And he did a lot of movies, so he's really good with that. He can act. I mean, I was surprised. I swear to God, I come from that acting school of acting education that you gotta at least give a little time to your bloody work and study your thing and try to understand what you're doing and what you're sharing with the people. You know, that's the minimum decency. The minimum decency. But other people do different, and it works. I'm not gonna blame them. But I don't want them on my face. That's it. But then I was shocked. It was funny, whatever. But then I mean, it works for him because he told me himself. He said, I did hundreds of movies like that, hundreds of movies and I said, I was amazed. I said, damn, I would love to be able to do that. You know, you give it a script, you put that thing, and then you come on set, and that's amazing. I think people will see I'm not good. I'm not that good.
Said,
honestly, I'm not that good. I think people will see that you know, you gotta be connected with people when you play. Come on, the camera sees everything. The camera sees everything.
I should share. I wanna share something with you, similar to that. Now, as a very experienced big actor, you should know, right, that they can make jokes of Green's beginners, right? So in my first movie, I've experienced a similar situation when my partner and I played a lead. The opposite, like there's the movie called La Gia, so I played a bad girl and there was a good girl and the main character. So, and I've experienced that a little bit as well when the main actor asked me on set just to be behind camera for his mood. And I was like, oh yes, my energy is really like hitting the whole thing. I'm really, you know, it's a magic. It's Edgar Allan Poe, and I'm playing Waji, and I really hypnotize everyone. It's like, I need Sophia for the sake of energy of that sex scene. He's having a love scene with his fiancée, but he's imagining on the script, he's imagining me, and he's like, can we call Sophia? And I'm running on set. It's my first movie. I'm like, that actor, he needs my energy. I'm like running, sweating. I'm like there, and I stand up like behind the camera, and I go like, my energy. Then like 5 or 10 years after, I understand that those all are just like part of a game, and this actor could easily do all that without this, but by seeing that I'm green, that I'm just a beginner, they were playing with me, you know, and now I understand that, and I'm like, okay, that's the part of being a beginner, but yes, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, for today, we've made a great chat with you, and I always say to the audience that we're not going to ask questions that you are guys writing during this first conversation with the guest of mine, and we're going to go back. Hopefully you'll be able to have another chat with us just for 30 minutes to go over the questions that I didn't ask you while we did the interview in a few or 3 weeks when it's a good time for you, because there was lots of questions, and then we're going to put this.
How much you going to pay me?
How much am I going to pay
How
you?
much money? How much money? The money!
Visit Russia, we'll discuss that. Hopefully we're going to make a movie where both of us are going to make lots of money. So the whole reason of this is to be combined, you know, to be together. And I know what's going on in Paris. I know what's going on in United States. But we are actors, and our job is to help people to believe in that future is going to be okay. Our kids are going to be okay. And now what we're doing, but by this Actors Talk, we're not making money. We're not doing anybody's fame, but at least we're sharing our experience and showing people that from nobody you can become somebody. And there is way to do that. And there is trust. And there is something that inspires you to do this. That's the only reason we do this. And now when we have time, and also world became so small. You're in Paris, I'm in Russia, it's 2 hours flight. Ask me how often am I in Paris? Very often. So next time in Paris, we're gonna have a great party together. We'll have something to
Oh la la.
And
oh
when
la
you
la,
go
la
to
la,
Russia, you'll have
that.
your and in Russia you're the welcome guest with like all the best starring accessories towards that. I mean, it's all together, and I think we should be more generous to share
We
the
should be
experience.
married. We should be married.
Gotcha. Bye. Yes, and on that note, we're gonna say goodbye to Said, and we'll see him in 2 or 3 weeks. And
and let's say, hold on, we gotta say a special thanks to the guy who connects us, to my brother and my dear friend, because I do have some really good friends in this business. The one and only, the great director, the great guy, my buddy, Mr. Brett Ratner.
Yes, Brett, we love you.
Brett,
so
if
nice.
you hear us with a very thick Arabic accent, if you hear us, Brett, we love you, my brother.
And I should add that if Brett Ratner has friends, it's a special people.
Oh la la, oh la la, oui. In French we said, oh la la, oh oui.
So sexy, damn you. I hate French people, man especially.
Well, thank you, Brett. Thank you.
I'll call you after that in private. We'll chat when we're gonna meet next time in a few weeks to read and go over the questions that
Alors, you have to say one
are...
thing. You have to say, Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Oh, voilà.
Inshallah.
So now you have me. Now you have me for good.
Inshallah. Inshallah. You did great. Thank you so much. And I know that...
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm happy that I was able to help you.
Bye, Said. See you in a few weeks again. Bye.
Inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
You're a special man.
Bye-bye, my sister. Take